Dear Lord, we thank you for all our blessings. We thank you for your goodness and your mercy towards us. We thank you for blessing us to have called us out of darkness and into your marvelous light and giving us this opportunity to hear the last message to this dying world. As we look all around, we see it dying. We see the earth waxing old like a garment, and knowing that those therein that dwell therein remain and abide within will die as well. We pray to be able to be equipped with the knowledge and the understanding and the discernment, using the methodology of parable teaching to help as many as we can. We pray that through our studies, you would guide and direct us and bless us, that we would become the teachers that you've called us to be. May your blessing be with us tonight. We thank you and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay.
Elaine, just a question on the reading. It is A.T. Jones. Is there an abbreviation on that? Because I've got the Pioneer Writings on my phone, and I was just looking for it under an abbreviation.
Yeah, the abbreviation is AUSSC. If you need more than that, I can probably find it again for you if I remember where I was at. Yeah, it's an appeal from the U.S. Supreme Court.
Oh, okay.
Decision making this nation a Christian, making this a Christian nation.
Yeah, I see it here. Yeah, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually, so yeah, right there on the title. I just threw all this, and I think I'm pretty sure we went through all of these. So it's 59 pages. I emailed it out so that anybody that wants to read it, but I'm pretty sure when we did it, we might have gone through each one of them one at a time. I don't remember if we skipped some of them, but I think I saved them as PDF files individually. So I just threw this into a PDF file real quick and didn't clean up all the extra spaces, if everybody knows what I'm talking about, that are in that you find on the CD-ROM. So
okay.
So for anybody that, I think Susan wasn't here, but we're going to review, instead of doing the evangelicals, we're going to review some of these A.T. Jones writings, in particular about making this nation a Christian nation. I found another article that maybe what I'll do is post it in the chat, and I'll also, I don't know if I want to email it out yet because I haven't read it all, but I think it might be useful to what we're studying. I think if I can see the page. It's the title of it is The Supreme Court's Facilitation of White Christian Nationalism. I found it interesting that what took place there goes to 1989, begins with 1989. So that kind of rang a bell as well. Okay, so this is A.T. Jones appeal, and that other one is not A.T. Jones. It's something I found on in a search on the internet. So this is appeal from the United States Supreme Court decision making this a Christian nation. So we understand that the work of the conservative wing of Protestantism has been wanting to amend the Constitution to make it a Christian nation. We know that as we got into our history, our current history, they just interpret it as a Christian nation, and much of the Christian world just accepts that we're a Christian nation without any idea of this background that we're not. And actually, what's interesting is there are people that truly know we're not a Christian nation, and they may not know all this history, but they know that they understand the separation of church and state. But a lot of Christians, particularly conservative Christians, have no idea, and they think that we are a Christian nation. I know that before I ever became a Christian, I believed that this was a Christian nation. So people don't know. And like with us, the things we don't know, when we educate ourselves, then we know. And education can sometimes be painful, because that education often means that we have to let go of things that we've always believed. But when light comes to dispel the darkness, and it's up to us to receive that light or not. So So this was the beginning of it. It was the beginning of this booklet was called a protest. On the 29th day of February, 1892, the Supreme Court of the United States rendered a decision. And on the 19th day of July, 1892, the Congress of the United States passed certain acts which singly together vitally concern every person in the United States, and through these, every person in the world. Thought that was interesting, that little note, and through these, every person in the world, because we know that this will involve the whole world. We know in 1863, Elder Tessa pointed out that in 1863, what was going on only pertained to the United States. And we saw as time went on, we see the development, and we can look in the world now and see the different nations that are behaving like this nation. And I don't know if anybody read, I think it was in the media broadcast. If it wasn't, then maybe you didn't read it, but I think it was in the media broadcast, but about Brazil. Belisarius, is that how you say his name? I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but how
Bolsonaro.
Oh, thank you. I get him confused with the one in Russia, over by Russia, for some reason. So thank you. But if anybody read that, it's like you could just put Donald Trump's name in place, and the United States and Brazil was like reading a replica of everything we just watched, and that president is doing in Brazil. It was like a script. It was amazing. So we know that it involves people through every person in the world, what is taking place here, that all are being tested. And I also was thinking on things about the situation with Donald Trump. And if everybody remembers how Elder Tess said that 2019 was an easy test to, when it came from that step from conservatism, it was real easy to see, what was happening. It was real easy to see. So even though we were basically all came from conservative Christianity, it was easy to see in that test what was wrong, and that the liberal side is not as easy to see. So to me, I started really pondering those thoughts and how Donald Trump was really a test for conservatives out there, whether they be conservative Adventists, your Levites or your Nathanims. It was really a test that people had to see. It's like we already had his background. We could see plainly who he was. We saw how he behaved prior to his election. And yet people continued to go forward and support. And so it was like I started to think of him as like a test for people of the world. And I don't know if it's right to say that, but it was a test of conservatism. So anyway, so those that stuck with him, we see where they're all at today. And it's really sad, especially when you see it in your own family, which I do, and maybe some of you do as well. So before noticing these proceedings in detail, and that this may be done to the best advantage and the most forcible way, it will be best to take a view of the fundamental principles of the government of the United States and the grand characteristics of this nation. On the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States, there is a Latin inscription, Novus Ordo Seclorum, meaning a new order of things. The new order of things was designed and accomplished in the American Revolution, which was the expression of two distinct ideas. First, that government is of the people, and second, that government is of right entirely separate from religion. So of the people and entirely separate from religion. Of right. I'm thinking he means of the certain inalienable rights. So by right, it was to be entirely separate from religion. These two ideas are but the result of the one grand fundamental principle, the chief cornerstone of American institutions. And this is briefly comprehended and nobly expressed in the following words of the Declaration of Independence. The rights of the people. And this is briefly comprehended, okay? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And it's interesting, as we read that, we can see how both sides will read that and see it from their perspective. And you see the violence and the lies and all of what we do of the far right Republican side, conservative Christianity, and yet the far right will turn around and call the Democrats and liberals the ones with fake news and all the lies, and accuse them of the very same thing. So it can be very confusing without really understanding the issues at hand along with it. So thus in 2 sentences was annihilated the despotic doctrine, which springing from the usurped authority of the papacy to sit in the place of God, and to set up and pull down kings, and to bestow kingdoms and empires at its arbitrary will, had become venerable, if not absolutely hallowed, by the precedents of 1,000 years, the doctrine of the divine right of rulers, and in the place of the old false and despotic theory of the sovereignty of the government and the subjection of the people, there was declared to all nations for all time the self-evident truth, the subjection of the government and the sovereignty of the people. So put in place to make it clear to not be what the papacy was. And yet, if you remember some of those documents that we read on Calvinism and those in John Knox in the 1600s, and how the conservative Protestants, even then, before they came here, were hungry to even resort to death penalty for people for having a different religion than what they were calling the established religion. They couldn't wait to have their turn at doing what the papacy, that's the way I understood it. I don't know how anybody else understood it. They seem to be not being able to wait to have their opportunity to be the power that the papacy was. So we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And this truth became an established and everlasting fixture of this government when the 9th and 10th Amendments were adopted. For Article 9 of amendments says, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The Article 10 of amendments says, the powers not delegated to the United States by this Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. It is, however, the rights of the people with respect to religion, with which we have here particularly to deal, as religion is the subject of the Supreme Court decision and the acts of Congress that are to be noticed. The right of the people of the United States to be a religious or not religious to be religious or not religious, each one for himself alone, without any notice or interference of the government in any way, is a natural, a constitutional, and a divine right. The natural right was one which was particularly considered in the times of 76 and the establishment of American independence, June 12, 1776, 22 days before the Declaration of Independence. A convention of the colonial house of Burgesses, is that how you say that? Burgesses of Virginia, adopted a Declaration of Rights composed of 16 sections, every one of which in substance afterward found a place in the Declaration and the Constitution. The 16th section in part reads thus: that religion or the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it can be directed only by reason and conviction, not by force or violence. And therefore all men are equally entitled to free exercise of religion according to the dictates of conscience. July 4th, following the Declaration of Independence was made, wherein this principle is embodied in the statement that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the government, from the consent of the governed. Governments do, and if you think about even that, the Trump supporters, technically they're governed, they're the governed, right? I don't know if anybody's ever thought about that. Any comments?
I don't understand the question.
I don't know if it was really a question, it was more a statement, but a question if anybody had comments on it. That the Trump supporters, can't they consider themselves the governed and they have the right to fight if they see something they think is wrong with their government?
Yes.
Yes,
Crazy as it is, right?
yeah,
Yes,
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at.
Isn't
Because,
that what they're doing?
huh?
Isn't that what they're doing?
Yeah. And that's why I say they see it, it depends on what perspective you see things in, that's for sure. So I'm thinking about my family, I mean, hey, they're governed, they're people that are governed by the government and they believe something's wrong with the government. And they're exercising their, go ahead. Somebody gonna say-
It's similar to, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
It's similar to their logic behind January 6th, because just as in the founding of America, the founders were rebels in a sense because they were bucking the government of Britain, England, right? And that was radical. What they were doing was radical. And so in the minds of the ones that, broke in on January 6th and did all that, they saw themselves as like similar to the forefathers who founded this country, because they see the government as being corrupt in error, right? And so they see it as their right
Yeah.
to do that. As
So-
crazy as it is.
We got a little mini sample on this gubernatorial election. Larry Elder, before things even got started, fraud.
Right.
Somebody finally told him, you know what? Stop it, Larry. That kind of halfway shut him down right there. Sure, you have a right if there's something wrong, but it seems like if they have their guy in there pushing all this silly nonsense, oh, it's no problem. Make America great again. As soon as somebody or some people disagree with it, then it's government fraud and it's all this and it's all of that. But this election was a very mini prime example of the silly nonsense. The mindset of people is getting worse and sadder and worse.
Yeah, there was some stuff talked about in the teacher chat as well, but and Trump himself also said that that he was claiming fraud as well with this California election. So he's involved in it too, but we were talking about it a little bit. Some of you guys were more than I was, but just I was kind of following it with in the teacher chat group about how, because I've been thinking about it and how, with my son being over in Berkeley and spending all those years now with all these liberals and how I was always afraid that that was just going to be the worst place for him to be. It's turned out to be the best place for him. And his girlfriend, I want to say it on loud, but she put on Facebook, so I'll leave it alone. But anyway, so he's very understanding of the rights of all people. He really seems to understand, without what we're learning, the rights of all people, humanity, and of those that he associates with, they're all on that same understanding about humanity. And so I started really kind of thinking about that, plus somebody that I've been talking to on Facebook a little bit, that how God, put this little group here in this state, and you saw this recall election, and the far right is trying to make a power grab to take California. And California showed them they don't want the Republicans leading this state. But somebody else, one of you guys, I don't know if it was Larry, maybe it was Larry, or maybe Susan, I don't remember, made a point that about, and I know I've seen this a lot because I hear people say it, that we just got to leave California. California is, I've been hearing that for a long time from people, that they got to leave California because it's just so bad with all the liberals, and there's just no hope for California, and they need to get out of California. And I just start thinking about how God placed us here in this part of the nation, this little group here, or made sure that he had representation in California. And now it's like we get this little breather. It almost seems like it's going to be a safe haven for some people for however long through as we, continue to go forward. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on that. Susan, I think you were involved in that conversation, were you?
Well, Victoria sort of started it when it came about this recall vote, right? And it's kind of interesting because the Lord really impressed me on Sunday. That I get a mail-in ballot. And I completely forgot I got the mail-in ballot because it arrived somewhere in August. But I've been so busy. And on Sunday, something just, I don't know, because I do drive by signs here in front of people's homes with recall, right? Recall Newsom. And something just impressed me that I needed to look into the voting on this recall election. Go find my ballot and see if that's what it was. How stupid, right? I didn't even realize I'd been mailed it, really. I just set it aside with all kinds of other mail that I get. And so on Sunday, I opened it up and I realized what day do I gotta mail it, And I debated, am I supposed to vote? Am I not supposed to vote? Because it seems like that topic was touched upon. Was it when Trump, I can't remember when that topic was touched upon. It was during the time I was not able to log in with you guys on a regular basis, and it was touched upon, but I just can't remember. I feel like it was a couple of years ago, and I couldn't remember what the movement's position was on voting, but I didn't recall it being an absolute no. And I was deeply impressed that I needed to vote on this recall election to stand against the Republicans, right? And as I investigated it a little bit, I came to, after reading New York Times, a couple little articles on that about it. It turned out that the Democrats had completely messed this whole thing up because they didn't think Newsom would be recall. They just didn't think it would happen at all. So their thoughts were, we better not run a good Democratic candidate up against Newsom, because if we run a good Democratic candidate up against Newsom, the ones that we want to vote no on the recall for Newsom might vote yes on the recall for Newsom, and then they'll pick another candidate, and there was 46 candidates
46.
on the ballot. And so you can imagine what a can of worms that's going to open up, right? Because if they don't run a front runner Democratic candidate, it's going to split the vote amongst all kind of strange candidates, to where the Republicans that are voting for their main person is going to win. So they told everybody, just vote no. That was the first thing they did. Just vote no, and don't even pick a backup candidate. Then at the last minute, they're scrambling and realizing, oh, maybe we should have told people to pick a candidate. So the more I looked at it, the more I realized I gotta vote no. And I quickly looked up who was the most popular Democratic candidate, and I voted for him as a backup in case the recall happened, right? And anyway, that's how the conversation began in WhatsApp, because Victoria wanted to know if we should vote, if we shouldn't vote. Then Larry chimed in, and he said they were both voting. Yes, today's Wednesday. Yesterday they got theirs in time, and it was Victoria's first time to vote. But what Larry noticed, and it's true, like what you just said, Elaine, I too, after reading what Larry posted, realized it's true. Many people think California's just crazy, too liberal, we're just too radical. And so they've been moving out. Plus, California's extremely expensive, and lots of hard on big businesses to make it, the taxes, all that. California's. Anyway, lots of people have moved other places. And so I think he's got a point that maybe a lot of Republicans will be marginal here and buy us more time, So it's very interesting, and I was impressed to vote. I'm glad that it went the way it did. What also really rang bells for me was Elder, the guy's name, Elder.
Yeah.
And right away, you think of church and elders. And without even knowing anything about the man, just knowing he was a Republican and his name was Elder, I said, church state, oh gosh, I could just see it, well, because of what we know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's kind of a rundown.
Well, now early on in this process started, it was positively identified as nothing but a Trump bunch of nonsense to destroy the Democrats in California, because it's been a strong Democratic state for years and years and years. That was their plan. Now, said that the Democrats messed up, but the Republicans messed up when they had a whole bunch of people, 2 or 3 were pulled a bunch of votes away from Elder. So they had their blunders too. They noticed that on the news. Oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have everybody running, but too late. They got what they got. This was just a sad scenario of trying to overdo that. Now, money spent, and now they're working on an initiative. If you want to do one of these things, recalls, you're going to dig up your own money, which I think is a good thing. It costs Californians, because of Republican lying nonsense, to get Gavin Newsom out of there, which Gavin Newsom is for full ladies' rights, full color rights, full everything. So their problem is there needs to be a thing passed, dig up your own money if you want a recall. It's cost Californians $300 million because
Yeah.
Republicans wanted a recall.
Yeah.
Sad.
So, well, that would maybe.
It is sad.
So we have a little
Yeah.
reprieve here, perhaps a little protection. A little protection from the Lord as this message goes forth, when it does go forth. That they want to leave, and we still have time here with the Democrat rule. So anyway, so governments deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed can never of right exercise any power not delegated by the governed. Now, religion pertaining solely to man's relationship to God, to the duty which man owes to his creator and the manner of discharging it in the nature of things, can never be delegated to another. So no one is to delegate religion to another. It is utterly impossible in the Constitution. It is utterly impossible for any person ever in any degree to transfer to another any of his relationship to God or any duty which he owes to his creator or the manner of discharging that duty. Man's relationship to God originates not with himself, but with the Lord. It springs not from himself, but from the Lord. The duty which man owes to his creator and the manner of discharging it spring not from himself, but from the Lord. These are not dictated nor defined by himself, but wholly by the Lord. Here, man is subject, not sovereign. None of these things, then, springing from himself, but all from the Lord, none of them could he delegate if he would. Even to attempt it would be only to deny God and renounce religion, and even then the thing would not be done. His relationship to God, the duty which he owes to his creator, and the manner of discharging it would remain as firmly fixed and as binding upon himself as ever. Under the Declaration of Independence, therefore, the government of the United States can never have anything to do with religion. I really like the way A.T. Jones makes things really, I mean, sometimes his writings are hard, but other times you can just hear the clarity in what he's saying, and he hammers it multiple directions. This is precisely the view that was taken and the use that was made of the Declaration as soon as it was published to the world. For no sooner was the Declaration published abroad than the Presbytery of Hanover in Virginia openly took its stand with the new and independent nation, and with the Baptists and Quakers addressed to the General Assembly of Virginia a memorial from which we extract the following passages as particularly pertinent to the matter here to be considered. Now, when the many and grievous, this is a quote, now when the many and grievous oppressions of our mother country have laid this continent under the necessity of casting off the yoke of tyranny and of forming independent governments upon equitable and liberal foundations, we flatter ourselves that we shall be freed from all the encumbrances which a spirit of domination, prejudice, or bigotry has interwoven with most other political systems. This we are more strongly encouraged to expect by the Declaration of Rights, so universally applauded for that dignity, firmness, and precision with which it delineates and asserts the privileges of society and the prerogatives of human nature, and which we embrace as the Magna Carta of our Commonwealth, that can never be violated without endangering the grand superstructure it was designated to sustain. Therefore, we rely upon this declaration, as well as the justice of our honorable legislature, to secure us the free exercise of religion according to the dictates of our consciences. In this enlightened age, and in a land where all of every denomination are united in the most strenuous efforts to be free, we hope and expect that our representatives will cheerfully concur in removing every species of religious as well as civil bondage. Certain it is that every argument for civil liberties gains additional strength when applied to liberty in the concerns of religion. And there is no argument in favor of establishing the Christian religion, but may be pleaded with equal propriety for establishing the tenets of Muhammad by those who believe the Al-Quran, or if this be not true, it is at least impossible for the magistrate to adjudge the right of preference among the various sects which profess the Christian faith, without erecting a claim to infallibility, which would lead us back to the Church of Rome. So,
Question,
yeah,
is the Al-Quran an old word for the Quran?
that's
Or
what
is the Al-Quran different?
I think that's what he's talking about, but we can look that up, huh?
It's very similar, but
I'm pretty sure it's probably gonna be the same thing. Definition, meaning, Al-Quran, definition, Al-Quran, see more, let's see. I guess I'm not.
they even spell Quran with a K now, you know?
Yeah. Definition from the Collins English Dictionary, Life on the Edge, the desire to push the boundaries has been a motivator in many a daring expedition, testing the human spirit and physical abilities to the utmost. Indulge her adventure. Well, I don't know. But
Up above it says something about Talmud and the Al-Quran.
where are you looking at? Up here?
You just opened it, but I don't, once you opened it, it disappeared, whatever. Oh, no, yeah, higher up above. There it is. It's thefreedictionary.com, Al-Quran. It mentions the Talmud. You see?
Yeah. I had rather believe all the fables in the legend and the Talmud and the Al-Quran. I don't know that we're actually getting the definition yet from that.
No, I know, but
Okay,
is that all that comes up for it?
hang on just one second. There,
While
you,
you're looking,
there you have it right
you know,
there.
I Googled it. Googling it says the Quran,
Yeah.
also Romanized Quran, Koran, is the central religious text of Islam.
Yeah, so it is what it is, Susan. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I was just making sure because it's different than I'd ever heard before.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep. Let me get back to our document. Okay. So certain it is, I'm gonna kind of go through that again, because I remember we had to read this a couple times before. I don't know about the rest of you, but I know I did. Certain it is that every argument for civil liberties gains additional strength when applied to liberty in the concerns of religion. And there's no argument in favor of establishing the Christian religion, but may be pleaded with equal propriety for establishing the tenets of Muhammad by those who believe in the Quran, or if this be not true, it is at least impossible for the magistrate to adjudge the right of preference among the various sects which profess the Christian faith without erecting a claim to infallibility. So if you try to put one, if I'm understanding, somebody else can elaborate, if trying to make one above the other, you try to make one the one for all, or what have you, you're going to affect everybody, and you're eventually that's you leading yourself back to Rome. Is that a fair way to say that? And we know that from the other documents that we've written. We know that from the history that we've been learning. We know that they have been not joining Rome as we've always misunderstood it to be, that we join Rome. We don't join Rome, we copy Rome with our own intentions to be the power that Rome was. So religion, church and state combined, the kings of Europe and the papacy combined, and the 1260 years of persecution, the United States makes a copy and joins with religion, the daughters, Protestants, to make a copy of Rome, or an image, a copy. And that's been their work from the very beginning. We beg leave farther to represent that religious establishments are highly injurious to the temporal interest of any community. We would also humbly represent that the only proper objects of civil government are the happiness and protection of men in the present state of existence, the security of life, liberty, and property of the citizens, and to restrain the vicious and encourage the virtuous by wholesome laws, equally extending to every individual, but that the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it can only be directed by reason and conviction, and is nowhere cognizable but at the tribunal of the universal judge. Therefore, we ask no ecclesiastical establishments for ourselves, neither can we approve of them when granted to others. This indeed would be given exclusive or separate emoluments or privileges to one set of men without any special public services, to the common reproach and injury of every other denomination. So you put one to be having exclusive or separate emoluments or privileges to one set, it's going to always affect the others, all the rest. And for the reasons recited, we are induced earnestly to entreat that all laws now in force in this commonwealth, which countenance religious domination, may be speedily repealed, that all of every religious sect may be protected in the full exercise of their several modes of worship, exempted from all taxes for the support of any church whatsoever, farther than what may be agreeable to their own private choice or voluntary obligation. This being done, all partial and invidious distinctions will be abolished to the great honor and interest of the state, and everyone be left to stand or fall according to his merit, which can never be the case so long as any one denomination is established in preference to others. Thomas Jefferson supported the memorial, and after what he pronounced the severest contest in which he has ever engaged, a law was passed December 6, 1776, totally disestablishing the Episcopalian Church in Virginia. Immediately following this, a powerful effort was made to establish the Christian religion without reference to any particular denomination, by levying a general tax for the support of teachers of the Christian religion. Against this also the Presbytery of Hanover, with the Baptists and Quakers, earnestly protested. Another memorial was presented to the assembly in which attention was called to the principles laid down to the previous memorial, and some additional arguments were made, of which the following passages are pertinent here. Does somebody want to read?
I can read.
Okay.
To illustrate and confirm these assertions, we beg leave to observe that to judge for ourselves and to engage in the exercise of religion agreeably to the dictates of our own consciences is an inalienable right, which, upon the principles on which the gospel was first propagated and the Reformation from papacy carried on, can never be transferred to another. In the fixed belief of this principle, that the kingdom of Christ and the concerns of religion are beyond the limits of civil control, we should act a dishonest, inconsistent part were we to receive any emoluments from human establishments for the support of the gospel.
Are
Scroll up
emoluments, yeah, I will. Are emoluments, is that like money and endowments and things that they do to help them? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's like a bribe.
Okay. So it's just so there can't be any support of religion by government as well, right?
Right.
By the government, if I said that, I think I said that, okay.
Then, after reciting some of the evil consequences which must inevitably flow from such a condition of things, the memorial closed with these weighty words. These consequences are so plain as not to be denied, and they are so entirely subversive of religious liberty that, if they should take place in Virginia, we should be reduced to the melancholy necessity of saying with the apostles in like cases, judge ye whether it be best to obey God or men, and also of acting as they acted. Therefore, as it is contrary to our principles and interest, and as we think subversive of religious liberty, we do again most earnestly entreat that our legislature would never extend any assessment for religious purposes to us or to the congregations under our care. I did not understand that.
You want to read it again?
And let me read that. Did others, anybody understand that and paraphrase that?
I'd rather read it again if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay. These consequences are so plain as not to be denied, and they are so entirely subversive of religious liberty that if they should take place in Virginia, we should be reduced to the melancholy necessity of saying with the apostles in like cases, judge ye whether it is best to obey God or men, and also of acting as they acted. Therefore, as it is contrary to our principles and interest, and as we think subversive of religious liberty, we do again most earnestly entreat that our legislature would never extend any assessment for religious purposes to us or to the congregation under our care.
So this was the Baptists and the Quakers talking, right? Where did it say that? Presbytery of Hanover, the Baptists and the Quakers earnestly protested. So another memorial was presented to the assembly in which attention was called to the principles laid down in the previous memorial and additional arguments. Yeah, I'm with you, Phil. I sometimes have a hard time following some of what we're reading.
So this quote, these consequences are so plain not to be denied. Is that A.T. Jones speaking, or is that the Quakers protesting speaking?
Well, that it says, then after reciting some of the evil consequences which must inevitably flow from such a condition of things, the memorial closed with these weighty words. So this is the second memorial. The first memorial is what I just read previously. supported the memorial, and after what he pronounced the severest contest in which he has ever engaged, the law passed in 1776, totally disestablishing the Episcopalian Church in Virginia.
Right, that's what Thomas Jefferson did.
So
No?
this church here, yeah, so this church here must have been still, if I'm understanding correctly, trying to mingle with government. Is that correct?
So
Because I
a
don't
law
remember.
was passed in December, totally disestablishing the Episcopalian Church in Virginia.
And we can back up through all these quotes, but somebody help me remember where we're at, page 6, I think. So I'm going to back up through these quotes. Okay. Okay, this is precisely the view that was taken and the use that was made of the Declaration as soon as it was published to the world. For no sooner was the Declaration published abroad than the Presbytery of Hanover in Virginia openly took its stand with the new and independent nation, and with the Baptists and Quakers addressed the General Assembly of Virginia a memorial from which we extract the following passages. Because if I'm understanding this correctly, this Presbytery of Hanover and the Baptists and the Quakers, they were on the right side of things, if I'm following this correctly. And I don't know where, because I don't remember him mentioning the Episcopalian previously. I don't know if anybody else does, because I don't know where the Episcopalian came into this. Anybody else, any thoughts on following this?
I wanted to clear up the emolument because I blurted out that it was a bribe, because I remembered that coming up during Trump when they were trying to impeach him the first time, and they linked, because he claimed, I don't know, it's tricky, but there's emoluments clauses in the Constitution, and Trump is the one who kind of catapulted emoluments to stardom. But when I looked it up more, it says it differs from bribery in important ways. Differences that President Trump didn't realize the implication to, but what it's linked to is it's like payments. It's like I'm not the best because it's a little bit complicated, and I'd have to read more, but it's almost like you're accepting payment. And so where was that in relation to that? It was the last paragraph before you, that fell red, before you went further back to try and make better sense of there. Oh, you've got it.
Yeah, I was trying to find the word. So therefore we ask no
It's in,
establishments for ourselves, neither can we approve of them when granted to others. This indeed would be giving exclusive or separate emoluments or privileges to one sect of men without any special public services, to the common reproach and injury of every other denomination.
Yeah, it also means payment, was mentioned by Susan. It's a salary or a fee, a profit from employment or office. So they're getting something out of it, which in the way of money.
It also extends to gifts, and they have a monetary limit to what they can receive as any kind of gift, even if it's like a placard or something. But it could only cost so much, and they can't go over that price. And because it's considered, if it goes over, it's considered an emolument. because they were talking about that when Trump was doing all kinds of shady things, and they were saying that it went against the emolument laws or rules or whatever you want to call them. So it's like a gift or not really a bribe, but giving them a gift is the only word I can think of.
Yeah, it could be stretched in a way to become a bribe, but it wasn't supposed to be a bribe.
Right.
But
Right.
I think that's how Trump used it.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not an easy concept, but I think emolument also has to it's not just payments and receiving of gifts. It's has to do with self-benefiting. So the reason that this was important with President Trump was he owned companies, he owned businesses. So emolument in this case for him was because he is now the president of the United States, he can now make certain laws to benefit himself, certain laws that would go towards his company, go towards his business to benefit himself and those who are those of his cronies. So that's in how this case, so it's not just receiving of the gifts, but benefiting because of what you already own. So I guess in this instance, has to do with religion. If you're a Catholic president, then you would make laws that would uplift the Catholics in order to benefit yourself. So it's a benefit to self by making laws towards one sect, as A.T. Jones put it, one set of religion. So if you're a president, you're an Episcopalian, then you would receive, because you're making good laws for the Episcopalians, now you'd be receiving benefits from those laws. So it's sort of like you're double dipping.
So this other paragraph I backed up to illustrate and confirm these assertions, we beg leave to observe that to judge for ourselves and to engage in the exercise of religion agreeably to the dictates of our own consciences is an inalienable right, which upon the principles of which the gospel was first propagated and the Reformation from papacy carried on, can never be transferred to another. So the religion can never be transferred to another, if I'm understanding correctly, in a fixed belief, because it's for yourself, according to your own conscience, in the fixed belief of this principle, it can never be transferred to another, that the kingdom of Christ and the concerns of religion are beyond the limits of civil control. We should act a dishonest, inconsistent part were we to receive any benefits, payment, or what have you, from human establishments for the support of the gospel.
Thanks for all the input. How you explained it, Phil, really was good. That really helped me. Thank you. And thanks for rereading that paragraph, Elaine.
Yeah, hopefully we got it. I think we do. Yeah, and I think I found where we're at. We're right here, right? I'm pretty sure, because this was the passage that we were.
Yes. I think so.
I have a comment too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see this as whenever there's religion involved with government or church and state, then there's always going to be favoritism in involvement with that religion that is being set up on I don't like the word pedestal, but it's being favored. above any other.
So consequences, these consequences, in other words, cause and effect, the consequences are the effect of the cause, right? So if that's the right way to say that. So the consequences that come from that is so plain as to not be denied, that they're entirely subversive of religious liberty. Subversive, does that mean that subversive, meaning that it's not religious liberty?
It undermines.
Undermines, okay, religious liberty, okay. If they should take place in Virginia, we should be reduced to the melancholy necessity of saying with the apostles, judge ye whether it's best to obey God or man, and also acting as they acted. So it's contrary to our principles and interests, and as we think, subversive of religious liberty, we do again most earnestly entreat that our legislature would never extend any assessment for religious purposes to us or to the congregations under our care. This was the churches that were speaking.
Yeah.
If I'm following them correctly, they're on the right side of things. This is the Presbytery of Hanover, Virginia, the Baptists and the Quakers. Did I follow that correctly?
Yeah, so I'm still confused who is speaking, but whoever is speaking, whether it be those churches or A.T. Jones, they're on the right side of the issue.
Yeah, okay. And he's just quoting them, yeah. Because he does say it, he said the memorial closed with these weighty words. So this memorial that took place, the second one, to go this again, then after reciting some of the evil consequences which must inevitably flow from such a condition of things, the emoluments being going to one over the other, the receiving of benefits, it's the mingling of church and state, and it's going to show the consequences of it. The consequences of, we're headed back to Rome, which was stated earlier. And so whoever's speaking in this one, it was in this second memorial, and the second memorial was, and this is in the Presbytery, let's see. Against this also, the Presbytery of Hanover with the Baptists and Quakers earnestly protested. Powerful effort was made to establish the Christian religion. Okay, immediately following this, so this was the first one. And following this, de-establishing the Episcopalian Church in Virginia, immediately following this, a powerful effort was made to establish the Christian religion without reference to any particular denomination by levying a general tax for the support of teachers. So they're trying to make it a Christian religion without distinguishing a particular religion by levying a general tax for the support of the teachers of the Christian religion. So they want the government to pay the teachers of the Christian religion. And against this also, because it was in the first section that it was the Presbytery of Hanover, the Baptists and the Quakers that protested in the first set of quotes. And they're the same ones again that are protesting against this, where they want to establish the Christian religion and use the general tax, government money, the people's money, to support teachers for the Christian religion. Okay, I think I get it a little bit more.
Question.
Yeah.
Question. So this kind of came up at the Hayward Church when I was still sitting on the board. And a lady from somebody on the board, right, knew a lady who was involved with social services, and they wanted to contract somehow with social services to be paid, so the church would get paid through that money. It was like government. And I didn't know very much, but to me that was a red flag, kind of like, you can't let it caused a big old argument on the board, because I saw it as a church and state thing. Like, once you begin receiving money from the government, you're then subject to the government for any of its rules, right? You can't just accept the money and then not go along with the government rules.
Right.
And that seemed like that was combining church and state.
Yeah, and any little
Was
bit.
that right? Was Was I correct or was I wrong?
It sounds like it, because when you take money from the government, then the government tells you what to do, right?
Yes.
But I know that we have to watch it with that when it comes to how do I say? I mean, we don't take money from them, but it went to the point to where I remember it being discussed about Elder Jeff always being afraid that the government was going to come take everything away because he had the 501c3.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, all the churches do because people want to write off their donations and their tithes or whatever on their taxes. That
Tax
always
credit.
kind of didn't feel right to me either.
But a church should always be self-supporting, right? A church should be
Yes.
supporting, it should be supported by its congregation and not by the government. So what they were trying to do is establish a Christian nation so that a general tax can be paying teachers of the Christian religion. And that's, if I'm understanding correctly, that's the emoluments that's being referenced here.
You know, it was so funny that 501c3 is it's an ongoing problem. Now, the last time I had the pleasure of meeting Jeff up at Rescue, our meeting up there, I asked him about that. Well, what's with that 501c3? He had the most agonizing, oh, that's, I got problems with that because he's taking a lot of money, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the most agonizing I've ever saw him when I asked him that question personally. He didn't really have an answer. Oh, I don't know how to deal with that. I'm trying to deal with that now. I'm under some other guy's tax thing. And I'm like, what? Okay, I just left it alone.
So the government's not to support the Christian teachers or any sort of Christianity whatsoever. And to do so
No.
is the taking of emoluments, and it's going to establish one religion over the other.
Right, because it's a private entity.
Yeah,
Christian schools are a private entity. And when the government comes in, they try to play these games though, and the schools hierarchy will accept it, give them tax credits or give them something in the form of an annulment
yeah,
that will support, but not look like it supports. But it's wrong. It should be totally separated from anything that has to do with the government and a private entity, which is a Christian school or paying their teachers.
yeah.
There's no way to be involved with that. It
So
shouldn't be.
So this was all right after the Declaration of Independence. So if you want to pick it up here, if everybody's done with that part of the conversation, if everybody's done, pick it up here.
By strenuous efforts, this attempt to establish the Christian religion was defeated in 1779, though the bill reached the point where it was ordered to a third reading. The events of the war prevented any further attempt in this direction till the war was over. No sooner had peace returned, however, than a stronger effort than any before was made to accomplish this object in an attempt to pass a bill establishing a provision for teachers of the Christian religion. Patrick Henry led in favor of the bill. Jefferson and Madison led the opposition. It became evident that in spite of all opposition, the bill would pass if it came to a vote. To escape this, Jefferson and Madison succeeded in carrying a motion to postpone the whole subject to the next General Assembly, and meantime to have the bill printed and generally circulated as soon as this motion had been carried, Madison wrote a remonstrance to be presented to the next General Assembly against the bill. This remonstrance was printed and circulated and discussed much more widely than was the bill which it opposed. It is one of the grandest public documents that ever was written. It ought to be learned by heart by every person in the United States. In this place, we can quote but a few passages from it, and here they are. Well, he said it ought to be learned by heart by every person in the United States.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah, no, wait a second. Did A.T. Jones say that or Madison said? Yeah, A.T. Jones is saying that, right? Yeah,
I think so.
that's A.T. Jones.
Yeah, so because Madison wrote a remonstrance,
Right.
and I think it's A.T. Jones is saying that we ought to know this by heart.
Okay. And they were against what Patrick Henry was supporting, and that he's supporting paying Christian teachers
Right.
government taxpayer money.
Yes.
Okay.
So we remonstrate against the said bill. 1, because we hold it for a fundamental and undeniable truth that religion, or the duty which owed to our Creator and the manner of discharging it, can be directed only by reason and conviction, not by force or violence. The religion, then, of every man must be left to the conviction and conscience of every man. And it is the right of every man to exercise it as these may dictate. This right is, in its nature, an unalienable right. It is unalienable because the opinions of men, depending only on the evidence contemplated in their own minds, cannot follow the dictates of other men. It is unalienable. Also, because what is here a right towards men is a duty towards the Creator. It is the duty of every man to render to the Creator such homage, and such only as he believes to be acceptable to him.
Your choice.
Yes. This duty is precedent, both in order of time and in degree of obligation to the claims of civil society. Before any man can be considered a member of civil society, he must be considered as a subject of the governor of the universe. And if a member of civil society who enters into any subordinate association must do it with a reservation of his duty to the general authority, much more must every man who becomes a member of any particular civil society do it with a saving of his allegiance to the universal sovereign. We maintain, therefore, that in matters of religion, no man's right is abridged by the institution of civil society, and that religion is wholly exempt from its cognizance.
So, you know, what's interesting is as you're reading that, I'm thinking about, you know, putting myself back there and then looking at where we're at today. And this is talking about the consequences of you know, the consequences of what, or in other words, the effect of what you want to do will lead. And so, you know, you look at it today, it is back here, some of these people, they either, maybe they did totally know what they were doing, but maybe just like so many of us, we never really learned to reason from cause to effect. So what starts out, and I can think of little things I've done in my own life. It's like, you know, we don't really reason from cause to effect. We're getting a lot better at that, but a lot of, in how we've been learning is to see the effect and be able to look back and find the cause so that we can start changing our actions as we, and I was sharing with somebody earlier that something that the lesson that I learned a long time ago before I was a Christian, that if you don't like where you're at in life, all can be traced to choices that you made. In other words, cause and effect. So if you know where you want to go, then make your choices aligned with where you want to go. So it's like either they don't reason from cause to effect, or they clearly know what they're doing. I don't know if that makes sense. But what we see today is it seems like a lot of people are following this whole conservative approach, and they're not reasoning from cause to effect to see where it goes. So A.T. Jones lays out the history, and if I remember right, a lot in this, not that we'll get through it tonight, but in this document from when we read it before, he lays out the history to show you clearly cause to effect for all that may see. And I think it really benefited us to be able to go through that. And I'm blessed to go, if we manage to go through it again all the way, because he really lays out the cause and effect of what it is they're trying to do, so that just like line upon line, just like repeating history, we can take the principles of line upon line and understand and reason from cause to effect here, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes total sense.
Yeah, in other words, they're going off their feelings instead of,
Yeah, yeah.
which is very impulsive, always. And it always leads to bad things later on down the road.
Seems harmless, seems like a good thing, seems really harmless and insignificant. And yet, when you understand where it leads, then if you understand where it leads, you can make a choice. Do I want to proceed down that path?
Exactly. And some will do it, make the decision based on what they might perceive what's going to happen. That might not be good,
And some,
but they do it anyway.
because they like where it leads.
Exactly.
We read, I don't remember which document it was, but when we were reading about the Calvinists and this back in the 1600s and John Knox, it was A.T. Jones talking about it, and how they literally, and I said it in the beginning, how they literally were wanting to punish people by death, or not. I don't remember the specific thing, but it had to do with the practicing of the religion and doing their own thing and not doing what they were saying. So I don't remember the specific issue in that particular document, but the general gist of it is that they were wanting to punish people by death, just like the papacy did. And so some people choose it because that's what they want to be. I mean, that's what we found in reading about those that came from that Calvinistic sect.
Number 3, because it is proper to take alarm at the first experiment upon our liberties, we hold this prudent jealousy to be the first duty of citizens, and one of the noblest characteristics of the late revolution. The free men of America did not wait till usurped power had strengthened itself by exercise and entangled itself in precedents. They saw all the consequences in the principle, and they avoided the consequences by denying the principle. We revere this lesson too much soon to forget it. Who does not see that the same authority which can establish Christianity in exclusion to all other religions may establish with the same ease any particular sect of Christians in exclusion of all other sects?
Yeah, so if you establish that Christianity, that this is a Christian nation, then there's nothing going to stop you than taking it to the next step. If I followed that correctly, that now you're going to choose a flavor of Christianity that makes this Christian nation.
Right.
What I understood? Okay.
That the same authority which can force a citizen to contribute 3 pence only of his property for the support of any one establishment may force him to conform to any other establishment in all cases whatsoever. Number 5, because the bill implies either that the civil magistrate is a competent judge of religious truths, or that he may employ religion as an engine of civil policy. The first is an arrogant pretension, falsified by the contradictory opinions of rulers in all ages and throughout the world. The second, an unhallowed perversion of the means of salvation. Number 7, because experience witnesseth that ecclesiastical establishments, instead of maintaining the purity and efficacy of religion, have had the contrary of operation. During almost 15 centuries, has the legal establishment of Christianity been on trial. What have been its fruits? More or less, in all places, pride and indolence in the clergy, ignorance and servility in the laity, in both superstition, bigotry, and persecution.
Sounds very familiar.
Yes, they just got out of that. Number 9, because the proposed establishment is a departure from the generous policy which, offering an asylum to the persecuted and oppressed of every nation and religion, promised a luster to our country and an accession to the number of our citizens. What a melancholy mark is the bill of sudden degeneracy. Instead of holding forth an asylum to the persecuted, it is itself a signal of persecution. It degrades from the equal rank of citizens all those whose opinions do not bend to the legislative authority. Distant as it may be in its present form from the acquisition, it differs from it only in degree. The one is the first step, the other is the last in the career of intolerance.
So the Inquisition is the, if I understand correctly, distant as it may be in its present form from the Inquisition. It differs, so it's going to result in Inquisition. In the Inquisition. Is that right? The Inquisition is the last step
Yes.
in the career of intolerance. I thought it was, I wanted to note what Madison said here is what he's saying, what this nation was to be, offering an asylum to the persecuted and oppressed of every nation and religion. As we think about that, when we go forward, that's what Madison is saying to the proposed establishment was this clause that they want to put in there for to being able to pay the teachers, make this a Christian nation and be able to pay the teachers out of taxpayer money. That he's stating that what this was to be was offering an asylum to the persecuted and oppressed of every nation and religion. Okay, so sorry about that. I just wanted to clarify this part about the Inquisition, that what he's saying from cause to effect is it's going to end in the career of intolerance or repeat of the Inquisition.
Right. Yes, that's what I see. Yeah, it differs only in degree. The one is the first step, the other is the last.
So the one is the establishment, right? The first is the establishment.
Right. So first is establishment, and the last of the intolerance is the Inquisition.
Okay.
Yeah, in the career of intolerance.
Cause and effect.
Yes.
And we have a history to show us that.
Yes. The
That is
magnanimous.
fearful. I'm sorry, Phil. It
Go
just
ahead.
impresses me. I just see it. That is so fearful. You know, this intolerance.
Yeah.
That's what it leads to.
We see the intolerance already out there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I
Yeah.
wanted to say this, maybe what your thoughts are on it, but, you know, with this mandate with masks coming from the government, I mean, it's not involving religion, but, you know, how far does it go with pushing people to do something that they don't choose to do? I just see it as, you know, many are balking at this, and really it's causing more problem than it would if they just let people make their decision and choice without any mandate or force, or saying you're going to lose your job if you don't take the vaccine. So, I mean, it might be good for some, but then what's it doing to others? I don't know. It's just on my mind.
The thing is, you have to have a mandate to get the, you know, when you, I kind of think about it as parenting. Sometimes as a parent, you have to take some really strong actions because of a danger. And this virus is a danger to all. And the government is acting in this case, at least this is how I see it. And you guys can say, comment however, if I'm wrong. But the government has to take a stand like a parent, because the little children are all over the place and across the board on this, and divided in some, many are supportive of the mandates and grateful for the mandates. I'm grateful for the mandates, but you have the other side that is going against it. And it's because of that, you can't get, and that in the vaccines as well, you can't get, you can't rid us of the virus. And
Yeah.
just really think about the whole conspiracy theories, when we learned in 2018 about the two streams of information and conspiracy theories and how destructive they are. So masks, vaccines, and social distancing save lives.
Yes, I do know that. I believe that. I'm just kind of pondering about it with people that are like children. They're going to resist even more. We know when you say no,
Yeah,
this is the better way to go, then they're going to fight against it. When in their minds, they've already made up their minds that they don't think that's the way they want to go for their lives.
and they claim that they can't breathe with a mask on. They claim that the vaccine is killing people. And what's interesting is they won't take the vaccine, but then they'll run off and get that. I don't, maybe somebody can pronounce the name right, the monoclonal, whatever it is, the treatment that
Yeah, it's
another
the-
one. So
yeah.
it's just, there's no sense involved whatsoever, but they're going to fight it, and it's part of the civil war of our day. It's part of the revolution of our day
Yeah.
that we're witnessing. And I just, like what I said earlier in the beginning with Donald Trump, it's like, he was because if I remember correctly, we're all tested on the same things. We were tested on conspiracy theories, and we understand the fractal of the priest, the fractal of the Levites and the Nethinims. So they're tested on conspiracy theories too. They were tested on conspiracy theories, and now we see those that stuck with their conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's true. And a great percentage of them are.
Yeah.
So there'll never be a total agreement. No way.
No, and I think it's in the notes that I'm doing on Friday. I'm in the middle of several, so I can never remember which one, but somebody might remember where. But Elder Tess talked about how the Republicans are not stupid people, she says. And I was thinking about, I was relating this to something that Ellen White says in The Desire of Ages. The Republicans are not stupid people. But what happens when you get beat up so many times over the years of this whole gay marriage and all of that is going on, you get beat up so many times, then you're just in it for the fight and to win, and you don't even reason it. They're capable of reasoning, but they don't even reason. They just dig their heels in and fight And so that's what we see a lot of these people too. They're just digging their heels in to fight to win. Without,
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's like they're like children
yes,
that are throwing a tantrum, and they'll throw a tantrum,
Yeah.
not so much of the issue, but because they were wrong, but they will never say that they were wrong. So they'll stick to their guns, even though in their hearts, they know this is really ridiculous, but I'm not, their pride, they're so prideful. I'm not going to go give in on their side. It's like a little child throwing a tantrum.
yeah. And that was the point that I was picking up from Desire of Ages. And I know Leonard was with us when we read through that, I don't know if you remember, but when we read through Desire of Ages quite a while back and came across that point, that very point, that the Pharisees, in Desire of Ages, she says that they did come to recognize who Jesus was. They did know that he was the Son of God. They did know that he was the Messiah, but their pride would not allow them to acknowledge that they had made a mistake,
Yes.
and they put him on the cross. So we're seeing the very same thing here, that it will not allow them, their pride will not allow them to admit that they're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very sad.
Yeah, it is, because it's the cost of many lives as a result.
Well, it's so sad. They show evening after evening, this married couple with 2 kids. Oh, I wish my wife would have taken the shot and she's dying and now she's dead. And just the opposite. Oh, my husband died. He tells everybody, take the shot. You have to look at the numbers. If 50% of people died from taking the shot, I probably would look at it a couple of times, but it's not so. It's a very small, fine percent. The people that are dying is the ones that have not taken the shot. So God gives us a brain of common sense. Well, maybe this stuff is working. It's not going to kill my religion. It's not going to kill my race, my nationality. It might save my sad life on this earth. That, to me, people that can't use their common sense are the ones that are really stupid. Because people are dying. The hospitals are overwhelmed. The emergency rooms are overwhelmed. And now they're passing it on to the poor little kids.
Did you see that?
And that's not right.
Did you see that it was announced today that 1 in 500 Americans have died now from COVID?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
1 in 500, that's pretty significant. And those are lives that did not have to be taken.
Exactly.
And it did say that a fair amount of them were over 85, but if they died of COVID, they could have been here with their loved ones longer.
I wanted to make a comment about what Jackie said about the mandates. If we go back to history and we go back and we look at the Spanish flu in America,
same problem.
Their mandates were so strong that if you didn't wear a mask, it got to a point where they would put you in prison. I mean, it was serious.
Yeah.
And the reason why, it's not, see, when you start putting in the freedom issue and my rights, but you don't have a right to harm anybody. None of us do. And if what we do can harm someone, and this harm can be lethal, people die. If what we do harms people, then we can't do it. So we don't have the freedom to harm people. And by not wearing a mask, unfortunately, you can cause people to die.
Yeah.
So this goes beyond, it's not a freedom or a rights issue, but yet the right side, or the side that doesn't trust government or establishment, they might make it that kind of an issue. It's not that issue, because if we go back in history, if more people would study the history of that Spanish flu, they got very, very serious. I mean, nothing that we have today can ever even compare to what the government at the time had to do. They had to literally force people to wear masks, because there was such a big, I honestly cannot understand what the big deal is about wearing a mask. It isn't even that big a deal. I mean, it's not like, you're handcuffed and you can't walk and you can't go. It's like, just put a mask on. Like, what's the big deal? But if you go back to history and you realize, I mean, I think how many, was it 50 million people in America died?
It was a lot. I think that's
Million?
right.
Just understand how many people that is. They had to get to positions where they had to put people in prison if they were not following the guidelines. And wearing masks was a huge thing. In the beginning, it was a lot of pushback, like we're getting, like we've, the mask issue has been an issue from the very beginning. I mean, from the very beginning, it was an issue. I don't understand, why do people have such a problem with wearing a mask? It doesn't harm us. It might be a little inconvenient, maybe a little hard to breathe, but it's not that big a deal.
Well, it's a very, very simple answer. But Forrest Gump gave that. I'm kind of like military, so I still laugh about it. Stupid is, stupid does what stupid is, stupid. It's simple.
And what Donna's pointing out about freedom, yeah, I've always believed that freedom is freedom with responsibility. And mask wearing is responsibility. So they have to go together. Freedom and responsibility have to go together. You're responsible for the lives of others.
Yeah, and the vaccine is a responsibility. And
Yes.
I appreciate, Donna, you saying what you did, because it is true. I mean, I have people around me. I have family members that they just don't see the importance. They don't have a problem with the mask. They just don't want to be vaccinated. And, that could change, but I don't, I hope for that. But the thing I see is that these people just digging in their heels, and absolutely, like we said, just like a child, I am not going to get a vaccine. And whether it's fear or just whatever the problems are, but it is so widespread, though. And so many are out there, as we all know. We see it on the news at night. So
It's
Yeah.
also, you also have the hypocrisy of saying, my body, my choice. I think that's how they say it. And yet at the same time, when it comes to abortion and what happened in Texas, they have no problem turning the body of women over to the government's rule.
yeah, it just doesn't even make sense. It's just a complete reverse there, Well, my right, yes, in that case, it is women's right, to have a choice of whether they want an abortion or not.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Well, because they're the very ones that, when these women are forced, these women that are not in a position to have a baby, first of all, the one that impregnates her is very often nowhere to be found except for off getting somebody else pregnant. And the women, I know it's not the case with every situation, but it generally affects the marginalized and the poor. So they can't afford another child or a child. And now they're being forced to, or try to have a dangerous abortion or travel where they can't afford to get an abortion. So they're forced to, but then where's the Republican government when the women that they force to have babies that they can't afford to have, where are they when it comes to, or in the case of rape and incest, the woman's traumatized and now she's forced to give birth to a child with all that baggage on top of it. And where's the Republican Party stance on healthcare and providing for when it comes to welfare and when somebody can't work? Where's their stance on that?
Tremendous problems.
It's just all backwards.
Yeah. So I'm glad we can talk about these things, though, because it is, what we're seeing, what we're going through in our time.
Yeah.
And, the less I know for me that I take my feelings out of this thing and just know, the right thing to do is only what I have control over. I don't have control over anyone else.
Yeah.
Do not forget that. and leave it in God's hands.
So Phil, maybe we should just finish this little section of what Madison says. And we'll tag it off here. I'm not sure how far it goes.
Okay. Great discussion.
Yeah,
The magnanimous sufferer of this cruel scourge in foreign regions must view this bill as a beacon on our coast, warning him to seek some other haven
wow.
where liberty and philanthropy, in their due extent, may offer a more certain repose from his troubles.
So watching what they're trying to do should be a warning to stay away. That's pretty severe.
Yes. Wow. All right, number 11. Because it will destroy that moderation and harmony which the forbearance of our laws to intermeddle with religion has produced among its several sects.
Can I stop you just 1 second again? I was just rereading that sentence because there was a part that I wasn't connecting, but the magnanimous sufferer of this cruel scourge, this religion being, if I'm understanding, because it's wanting to make a Christian nation, where it's going to go, the magnanimous sufferer of this cruel scourge in foreign regions, so elsewhere, they're elsewhere.
Yes,
I got that, but I didn't really connect all the dots. So they're elsewhere, living it, wanting to be free from that oppression and that cruel scourge, right?
yes,
And so they should see the bill of what this is, where this is leading, this Christian, to make this a Christian nation, as a beacon on our coast, warning them to seek somewhere else. I didn't really connect all of the dots there. I got pieces of it, but yeah, he's someone who's already suffering in another, because this is what it was supposed to be. He says in the previous paragraph that it was supposed to be an asylum for the oppressed and persecuted to come to,
right.
of every race and religion. And so this is someone he's pointing out, the sufferer elsewhere, already under this, in other places, should view this bill as a warning. Okay.
Yeah, and to seek some other haven
Yeah.
where liberty and philanthropy in their due extent may offer a more certain repose from his troubles.
Wow.
Yes. Number 11. Because it will destroy that moderation and harmony which the forbearance of our laws to intermeddle with religion has produced among its several sects. Torrents of blood have been spilt in the old world in consequence of the vain attempts of the secular arm to extinguish religious discord by proscribing all differences in religious opinion. Time has at length revealed the true remedy. Every relaxation of narrow and rigorous policy, wherever it has been tried, has been found to assuage the disease. The American theater has exhibited proofs that equal and complete liberty, if it does not wholly eradicate it, sufficiently destroys its malignant influence on the health and prosperity of the state. If, with the salutary effects of this system under our eyes, we begin to contract the bounds of religious freedom, we know no name which will too severely reproach our fall. At least let warning be taken at the first fruits of the threatened innovation. What mischiefs may not be dreaded should this enemy to the public quiet be armed with the force of law. Because finally, the equal right of every citizen to the free exercise of his religion, according to the dictates of conscience, is held by the same tenure with all our other rights. If we recur to its origin, it is equally the gift of nature. If we weigh its importance, it cannot be less dear to us. If we consult the Declaration of those rights, which pertain to the good people of Virginia as the basis and foundation of government, it is enumerated with equal solemnity, or rather with studied emphasis. Either then, we must say that the will of the legislature is the sole measure of their authority, and that in the plenitude of that authority, they may sweep away all our fundamental rights, or that they are bound to leave this particular right untouched and sacred. Either we must say that they may control the freedom of the press, may abolish the trial by jury, may swallow up the executive and judiciary powers of the state, nay, that they may despoil us of our every right of suffrage and erect themselves into an independent and hereditary assembly. Or we must say that they have no authority to enact into a law the bill under consideration. The direct result of this incomparable remonstrance was that the iniquitous bill to which it was opposed was overwhelmingly defeated, and in its stead, there was passed, December 26, 1785, an act for establishing religious freedom, written by Thomas Jefferson, and which, with a portion of the preamble, runs as follows.
Maybe we actually ought to pick up there next time. So I'm thinking about Madison here and what A.T. Jones said when we went into that passage that everyone ought to memorize, because he just gave reason from cause to effect examples, basically, of where it would lead. And so as we think about that, and understanding that our arguments have to be the arguments of A.T. Jones, of looking for the rights of all, and how the laws that they're going to place, that they're seeking to and have, are seeking to place, and what culminates in the fall of the United States and Adventism with them, is the laws that are going to be those oppressive laws against women's rights and the LGBT community, and oppressive laws that will result in the Inquisition, right?
Correct.
And they've already given us an example in Texas by basically deputizing the citizens to turn people in for money.
That's what it is. Turning people in, turning your neighbors for money.
Yeah.
Anybody.
And at the same time, passing a law, the permitless carry law. So now they can carry their guns anywhere. So they're going to be religious fanatics hunting down, as bounty hunters, anyone involved in helping a woman get an abortion.
And it's legal.
Yeah,
Under the Texas law. Yeah.
that's amazing. So I want to close it there, but I'm hoping that Leonard, I know Leonard is still with us. If you got your mic on, if you have any questions to what we've just been reading.
No, I'm just trying to follow you guys. But listen, be a good listener right now.
Do you understand it, what we're going through?
Yeah,
Follow it? You understand how it fits too? Because I know that you've missed a lot on the message. You understand how it fits to what's happening in the world today?
oh yeah.
Okay, I thought you would. I thought you would. So, but you may have questions on some of the things that we do discuss when it comes to abortion, when it comes to the rights of homosexuals. And so we'll get there with that. If you have any questions, feel free to call me up and we can talk about that. But we can, what A.T. Jones argued in this history, well, this particular document is the one on them trying to make a decree that, change that this is make an amendment that this is a Christian nation. And they used wanting to pay teachers of the Christian religion out of taxpayer dollars. And then A.T. Jones argues against when they wanted to make Sunday laws. So our arguments will be similar arguments, but they'll be about equality and about gender rights and the people, the rights of the equality of all people, the rights of all people. So imagine how it looks to Adventism and conservative Protestantism when we stand up for the rights, the right of a woman to choose. And the issue of whether or not it's right to abort the baby or not is not the issue. The issue is the rights and the free choice of the woman. And then the same thing with the LGBT community. It's their right, but there's more involved in the issue with LGBT than what we're just stating here. So, and we'll be continuing to learn more about that as we go forward. So Leonard, yeah, feel free to call me if you have any questions, or any one of us, if you have other numbers, if you want to talk to anybody else, because we've all been pretty much following along and would love to help you out anywhere we can.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have somebody close in prayer? Maybe Belle, if you'd like to close in prayer.
Yes. Holy God, you're amazing, and we are grateful how you lead us. Lord, you show us the end from the beginning. And you are teaching us to realize how important it is to understand our history. Lord, I remember as a student in school, junior high, high school, the histories that were taught. It was most boring, well, back then. And the histories that we were taught was in a point of view of whoever the writer of the history was at that time, whatever books were being used, whoever the writers were. And it was always from their point of view, their perspective. And so, at least to me, history was not pertinent to my life. It was boring. And I could never understand how few friends that I did have, few of them, they in college, they majored in history. And I always wondered, what are they going to do with a history major? But now, Lord, you are showing me the importance of history, the right perspective, and how it's pertinent in our time, in our lives, to understand the history that you are teaching us. And so, Lord, I'm so grateful for this movement. how you are teaching us to look at history, because you are indeed God who shows the end from the beginning. And now, because of this history, the 1888 history properly understood, that we can understand the history of our time, what is going on in our time, and why it's important to stand up and to stand with those who are different. And it's not just enough to tolerate them, because tolerate means there's a degree of acceptance. But once they pass that degree, then you'll no longer tolerate them, and now it becomes intolerant. We have to love them as they are, people who are different. We have to understand them fully and completely and love them wholly, so that there is no tolerance, but full acceptance and full understanding and full loving, that we can indeed stand with them and loose their bonds and do away with oppression. And so we're just so grateful, Lord, how you are leading this movement, how you are changing our hearts. And so thank you, Lord, and forgive us, forgive me for the wrong understanding. But now, Lord, I'm just completely thankful how you will lead, how you are leading us, and how we can be of help, be of service, and to understand that when we are persecuted, that it is for the right cause, and we will rejoice in being persecuted with these people. Thank you, Lord, for all you do for us, your kindness and your teaching and your leading, and for all those who are still here in this movement, rejoicing in how you are leading us. Thank you, Lord. In Yeshua's wonderful and mighty name we pray. Amen.
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 And
Powerful prayer. Thank you.
I was thinking about, as you were talking about perspective, because our perspectives are formed on information, right? What information we have builds your perspective. And if your information is bad, then your perspective is going to be off. But it also is not just on bad information, it's on rejecting correct information as well. You hold on to your wrong perspective because you reject correct information when it's presented. It was just a point to that I was thinking about as you were praying that, of how we wind up with having such a wrong perspective. And I thank God for, as Phil did in prayer, for helping us to have the right knowledge, correct knowledge, that our perspectives can now be I had a conversation with somebody the other day that makes me think of this, because we're not trying to give a perspective of, if everybody remembers when the first election with Trump came about, and it seemed like, wow, all you had to do is post something about Trump that was negative, and everybody's all over you, automatically assuming you're wearing that blue hat, and just because you're not supportive of one doesn't mean that you're supportive of the other. And so we're learning God's perspective. We're learning, he's teaching us his perspective, how he views things. And that's the perspective that we need to know how to teach others, and have them understand that it is God's perspective that we're giving them, if that made sense.